The bitter taste of cheap coffee clung to my tongue as I straightened the stack of contracts on Preston Marchetti's mahogany desk for the third time that morning. My fingers trembled slightly, not from the cold that seeped through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 42nd floor, but from the exhaustion that had become my constant companion over the past 6 months. Each movement sent a dull ache through my lower back, a reminder of the long hours spent hunched over filing cabinets and conference tables in the gleaming corporate fortress that housed Marchetti Industries. The office smelled of leather, expensive cologne, and something else I could never quite name. Power, perhaps, or danger. The kind that made my pulse quicken whenever Preston walked into a room. I smoothed down my gray pencil skirt, conscious of how plain it looked compared to the designer outfits that draped the bodies of other women who worked on this floor. Women like Veronica Ashford, whose Louboutin heels I could hear clicking down the hallway even now, each step a declaration of superiority. Paige, her voice cut through my thoughts like a knife through silk. Still playing dress-up as a professional? How adorable. I turned to find Veronica leaning against the doorframe of Preston's office, her crimson dress hugging curves she never failed to display. Her dark hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders, and her lips, painted the same shade as her dress, curved into that familiar, mocking smile. "Good morning, Veronica," I replied softly, refusing to take the bait. I'd learned that lesson months ago. Engaging with her only fed the beast. She sauntered into the office, her perfume, something floral and suffocating, filling the space between us. "Preston will be in a meeting with the Benedetti family all afternoon," she said, her tone suggesting she knew far more about his schedule than I did. "Important business, the kind that requires sophisticated company." The implication hung in the air like smoke. I wasn't sophisticated. I wasn't the type of woman a man like Preston Marchetti would notice, let alone desire. "I'm aware of his schedule," I said quietly, returning my attention to the contracts. "I manage it." Veronica's laugh was like breaking glass. "Oh, darling, you manage his paperwork. I manage so much more." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Look at you, Paige. Really look at yourself. Those sensible shoes, that boring hair pulled back like some Victorian governess, that face completely bare of any effort to be attractive. Do you honestly think a man like Preston Marchetti, powerful, dangerous, devastatingly handsome, would ever look at you twice?" My throat tightened, but I forced myself to remain calm. "I'm just here to do my job." "And thank God for that," Veronica said, straightening, "because he would never kiss you, never touch you, never see you as anything more than the little mouse who files his papers and fetches his coffee. You're invisible to him, sweetheart, and you always will be." The words landed like physical blows, each one finding its mark in the vulnerable spaces I tried so hard to armor, because part of me, the part I kept locked away in the darkest corner of my heart, feared she was right. I'd been working as Preston's executive assistant for 6 months, ever since graduating from business school with honors and a mountain of debt. The job paid well, far better than anything else I'd been offered, but it came with a price. Preston Marchetti wasn't just the CEO of a legitimate import-export empire. Everyone knew he was something else entirely, something dangerous. The rumors circulated through the office like whispered prayers: money laundering, connections to organized crime families across the East Coast, meetings that ended with people disappearing. But I'd never seen evidence of any of it. All I saw was a man who worked longer hours than anyone else, who never asked me to do anything illegal, who sometimes looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Or maybe I imagined that. Maybe Veronica was right, and I was just a plain, invisible girl who let herself believe in fairy tales. The door to the private elevator opened with a soft chime, and my heart stuttered. Preston Marchetti filled the doorway in the way only he could, not just with his physical presence, though he was tall and broad-shouldered, his tailored suit emphasizing every line of muscle beneath Italian wool. No, it was something more. An aura of absolute authority that made even the air seem to bend around him. His dark hair was swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and strong lines, with eyes so dark they appeared black in certain lights. At 35, he commanded empires both legitimate and otherwise, and everyone in his orbit knew better than to cross him. "Mr. Marchetti," Veronica purred, her whole demeanor transforming. She straightened, chest out, smile bright and inviting. "I was just reviewing the Benedetti meeting details with Paige." Those dark eyes swept over Veronica with the kind of assessment one might give to a mildly irritating insect. "Were you?" It wasn't a question. His voice was a low rumble, the kind that seemed to vibrate through your chest. Then his gaze moved to me and something shifted. His expression softened almost imperceptibly, a change so subtle that anyone else might have missed it. But I'd spent months studying every micro-expression that crossed that face, learning to read the storm beneath the surface. "Miss Hayes." He nodded once. "The contracts?" "Ready for your signature, sir." I gestured to the neat stack on his desk, proud that my voice didn't shake. "I've flagged the sections that require immediate attention and cross-referenced with the legal team's notes." Something flickered in his eyes. Approval. Appreciation. Efficient as always. He moved past Veronica as if she weren't there, his attention fixed on the documents. "Clear my schedule for the next hour. I need to review these without interruption." "Of course, sir." I pulled out my phone to send the necessary messages. "That includes you, Miss Ashford," Preston said, not looking up from the first contract. His tone was polite, but final. Veronica's smile faltered. "But I thought—" "Now, please." Steel wrapped in velvet. I watched Veronica's face transform from seductive confidence to barely concealed fury in the space of a heartbeat. Her eyes met mine, and the message was clear. This isn't over. "Of course, Mr. Marchetti." She swept from the office, heels clicking an angry staccato against the marble floor. The silence that followed was thick, broken only by the distant hum of the city below, and the soft rustle of papers as Preston reviewed the contracts. I should have left. He'd asked for privacy, but my feet remained rooted to the plush carpet. "You can stay, Miss Hayes." He still hadn't looked up. "I may have questions about the Thompson acquisition." My pulse quickened. "Yes, sir." I moved to the chair across from his desk, settling into the buttery leather as he read. The afternoon light streaming through the windows cast shadows across his face, highlighting the sharp line of his jaw, the intensity of his concentration. My gaze traced the strong column of his throat, where it disappeared into his crisp white collar, the way his long fingers held the papers with casual confidence. "Stop it," I told myself. Veronica's words echoed in my mind. "Look at you. He would never kiss you." "Your analysis of the Thompson financials was impressive," Preston said suddenly, his eyes lifting to meet mine. "The discrepancies you caught in their third-quarter reports, my legal team missed those entirely." Heat flooded my cheeks. I'm good with numbers." "You're better than good." He set down the contract, leaning back in his chair. For a moment, he simply looked at me, and I felt exposed under that penetrating gaze. "You graduated top of your class, turned down offers from Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley to work here. Why?" The question caught me off guard. In 6 months, he'd never asked me anything personal. The opportunity seemed unique. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You mean dangerous?" "I mean unique," I repeated, holding his gaze despite every instinct screaming at me to look away. Something sparked in those dark eyes. Interest, perhaps, or amusement. "Most people are afraid of me, Miss Hayes. You included, I suspect. But but you show up every day, do exceptional work, and never once have you looked at me the way Veronica Ashford does." My mouth went dry. "And how does she look at you?" "Like I'm a prize to be won." He leaned forward, elbows on his desk. "You look at me like I'm a problem to be solved." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I said nothing. "The Benedetti meeting," Preston continued, mercifully changing the subject. "I'll need you there to take notes. It's been moved to the penthouse conference room. 7 p.m. "Of course, sir. Should I—" "And Miss Hayes." He caught my gaze again. "Don't let Veronica get to you. She doesn't know what she's talking about." The words were casual, almost throwaway, but they landed with unexpected weight, like he'd somehow heard every cruel thing she'd said. "I won't, sir," I managed. He nodded, returning to the contracts. "That will be all for now." I stood, smoothing my skirt, and turned toward the door. My hand was on the handle when his voice stopped me again. "Paige." My first name. He'd never used it before. I looked back. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't decipher, something complex and layered beneath that controlled exterior. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for the work you do. It doesn't go unnoticed." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Thank you, sir." As I returned to my desk in the outer office, I pressed my fingers to my burning cheeks, trying to steady my breathing. Through the glass walls, I could see Preston bent over the contracts again, utterly focused. And I wondered, not for the first time, but with a dangerous new hope, if maybe Veronica was wrong after all. The afternoon passed in a blur of emails, phone calls, and the constant low-grade anxiety that preceded any meeting with the Benedetti family. Everyone whispered about them. Old money, old power, the kind of connections that made even Preston tread carefully. At 6:30, I gathered my laptop and notepad, changed into the spare blazer I kept in my desk drawer, and touched up my lipstick. A rare concession to vanity that I immediately regretted. What was I doing? Trying to look pretty for a meeting with dangerous men. Trying to prove Veronica wrong. The penthouse conference room was on the 45th floor, accessible only by a private elevator that required Preston's keycard. The doors opened onto a space that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering a 360-degree view of Manhattan, a sleek glass table that could seat 20, and recessed lighting that cast everything in a warm, golden glow. Preston was already there, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows in a way that should have looked casual, but somehow only emphasized his power. He turned as I entered, and for a moment, just a moment, his eyes traveled over me in a way that made my skin flush. "Miss Hayes." Back to formality. "Set up at the far end. You'll take minutes, but stay quiet unless I ask you a direct question. The Benedettis are traditional." "Understood, sir." I had just opened my laptop when the elevator chimed again. 3 men emerged. 2 obvious bodyguards flanking a silver-haired man in an immaculate charcoal suit. Luca Benedetti, patriarch of one of the oldest crime families in New York. But it was the woman behind them who made my stomach drop. Veronica. She swept into the conference room like she owned it, wearing a black cocktail dress that belonged at a gala, not a business meeting. Her eyes found mine immediately, and her smile was pure venom. "Mr. Benedetti," Preston said smoothly, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming." "Preston." Benedetti's voice was cultured, with just a trace of an Italian accent. "Always a pleasure. I hope you don't mind. Miss Ashford insisted on joining us. She mentioned she's been instrumental in facilitating our negotiations." I watched Preston's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. "Of course." Veronica claimed the seat directly across from Preston, positioning herself in his eye line. Throughout the meeting, she found ways to contribute. Meaningful comments about shipping routes and customs protocols that I had to admit were genuinely helpful. but between each contribution, her eyes would flick to me with that same message. See? This is where I belong, not you. The meeting dragged on for 2 hours. I took meticulous notes, staying silent as instructed, hyper-aware of every glance Veronica shot my way. By the time Benedetti and his men stood to leave, my hands ached from typing and my head throbbed from the tension. "We'll be in touch about the Shanghai shipment," Benedetti said, shaking Preston's hand again. "And Preston, bring Miss Ashford to the gala next week. She's quite charming." "I'll consider it," Preston replied, his tone neutral. As the elevator doors closed behind the Benedettis, Veronica turned to me with a triumphant smile. "See, Paige? This is what it looks like when Mr. Marchetti actually values someone's presence. You can go back to your filing now." I gathered my laptop, refusing to give her the satisfaction of a response. "That's enough, Miss Ashford." Preston's voice cut through the room like a blade. Veronica's smile faltered. You overstepped." He moved toward her with predatory grace. "I don't recall asking you to join this meeting. In fact, I specifically remember not asking you." Mr. Benedetti requested nothing. You inserted yourself, and while your contributions were adequate, your behavior toward my assistant is unacceptable." My assistant. The possessiveness in those 2 words sent a shiver down my spine. Veronica's face flushed. "I didn't leave." Preston's tone brooked no argument. "Now." For a moment, I thought she might refuse. But something in Preston's expression must have warned her against it. She gathered her things and stalked to the elevator, shooting me one last look that promised retribution. The moment the elevator doors closed, the tension in the room shifted. Preston turned to me, and I found myself trapped in that dark gaze once more. "I apologize for her behavior," he said quietly. "You don't need to apologize for someone else, sir." "Don't I?" He moved closer, and suddenly the massive conference room felt very small. "You work for me. That makes your well-being my responsibility. My well-being. As if I were something precious, something worth protecting." "I can handle Veronica," I said, though we both knew it was a lie. "You shouldn't have to." He was standing just a few feet away now, close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar and bergamot, and see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw. "She's wrong, you know." "About what?" My voice came out barely above a whisper. Preston's eyes held mine, and something unreadable flickered in their depths. "About everything she says to you, about who you are, about who I see when I look at you." My heart stopped, started again. "Sir, the annual gala is this Friday," he interrupted, as if he hadn't just turned my world sideways. "All senior staff are required to attend. I expect you to be there." "Of course, sir." "Good." He stepped back, creating distance that felt both necessary and devastating. "That will be all for tonight, Miss Hayes. Go home. Rest." I nodded, not trusting my voice, and gathered my things. As I waited for the elevator, I felt his eyes on me. That same intense attention that made me feel seen in a way I'd never experienced before. The elevator doors opened and I stepped inside. Just before they closed, I looked back one last time. Preston stood at the windows, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the glittering city below. And maybe it was the angle, maybe it was the lighting, but I could have sworn he was smiling. The week leading up to the gala passed in a haze of preparation and anxiety. Preston had insisted, through a message delivered by his personal shopper, that I charge whatever I needed for the event to the company account. The gesture was kind, but it felt dangerously intimate, like he was dressing me himself. I'd settled on a simple emerald dress from Bloomingdale's, elegant but understated, with a modest neckline and sleeves that covered my arms. Looking at my reflection the evening of the gala, I hardly recognized myself. The girl in the mirror seemed poised, professional, someone who might actually belong in Preston Marchetti's world. But as I arrived at the Grand Meridian Hotel, where the gala was being held in the magnificent ballroom, all my carefully constructed confidence crumbled. The room was a sea of designer gowns and tuxedos, dripping with diamonds and old money. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, and a string quartet played softly in one corner while waiters circulated with champagne that probably cost more per glass than my monthly rent. I recognized faces from the office, from society pages, from the news. This wasn't just a corporate event. This was where power gathered, where deals were made in hushed conversations behind gloved hands. Paige. I turned to find Marcus Chen from accounting, one of the few people who'd always been kind to me. His smile was genuine as he approached with his wife, a tiny woman in a stunning red gown. "You look beautiful," he said warmly. "The green suits you." "Thank you." I managed a smile. "This is quite the event." "Preston doesn't do anything halfway," Marcus replied. "Fair warning, the alcohol is top shelf, but pace yourself. These things tend to get complicated as the night goes on." Before I could ask what he meant, a hush fell over the crowd. I turned to see Preston entering through the main doors, and the sight of him stole my breath. He wore a midnight blue tuxedo that looked like it had been designed specifically for his body, emphasizing his broad shoulders and lean frame. His hair was styled back, revealing the sharp lines of his face, and even from across the room, I could feel the force of his presence. Women turned to watch him pass, and men straightened their spines, suddenly aware of the predator in their midst. At his side, her hand tucked possessively through his arm, was Veronica. She wore a blood-red gown that clung to every curve, a daring slit revealing her leg to mid-thigh, and her dark hair was swept up to showcase the diamond earrings that caught the light with every movement. She looked like sin personified, and she knew it. My stomach twisted. Of course Preston would bring her as his date. "Don't let it get to you," Marcus murmured beside me. "Benedetti practically ordered Preston to bring her tonight. It's all political theater." But it didn't feel like theater when Veronica leaned close to whisper something in Preston's ear, when his lips curved into a polite smile, when they moved through the crowd together like royalty. I accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and downed half of it in one gulp. "Easy there," Marcus cautioned. "I'm fine," I lied. The first hour of the gala passed in a blur of forced small talk and carefully avoiding the corner where Preston and Veronica held court. I watched from a distance as they moved through the room, Veronica introducing him to this politician's wife, that judge's daughter, always with her hand on his arm, her body angled toward his in unmistakable possession. And Preston. He was the perfect gentleman, polite and charming. But his eyes kept scanning the crowd like he was looking for something. Someone. "You should go talk to him," Marcus suggested as his wife pulled him toward the dance floor. I wouldn't know what to say. "How about hello?" He grinned. "Trust me, Paige. You're not as invisible as you think you are." But I felt invisible. Standing in my modest green dress while Veronica sparkled in red, I felt like exactly what she'd always called me. A mouse. Plain. Forgettable. Unworthy. I was considering leaving early, claiming a headache, a family emergency, anything, when Veronica's voice cut through the ambient noise like a siren. "Ladies and gentlemen." She stood near the small stage where the quartet had been playing, a microphone in her hand, her smile bright and venomous. If I could have everyone's attention for just a moment. The room quieted, all eyes turning toward her. Preston, standing near the bar with several business associates, frowned slightly. "As many of you know," Veronica continued, her voice carrying easily across the ballroom, "Marchetti Industries has been my home for the past 3 years. I've had the privilege of working closely with Mr. Marchetti on several high-profile projects, and I've come to admire not just his business acumen, but his She paused, letting her eyes find his across the room. His many other qualities. Uncomfortable laughter rippled through the crowd. This wasn't a professional announcement. This was something else entirely. So I wanted to take this opportunity, Veronica said, to publicly thank those who make this company great. The secretaries who file our papers, the accountants who balance our books, Her gaze swept the room until it landed on me, and her smile sharpened. The assistants who fetch our coffee and believe they're indispensable. My face burned. Several people had followed her gaze and were now looking at me with expressions ranging from pity to amusement. Some people, Veronica continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness, seem to think that doing a job competently entitles them to aspirations beyond their station. They look at men like Preston Marchetti and actually believe, can you imagine? That they might have a chance. The laughter was louder now, cruel. My hands clenched around my champagne glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. Look at her, Veronica said, and now she was pointing directly at me. Sweet, mousy little Paige in her department store dress, clutching her glass like it's a life raft. Do you know what she does? She fantasizes. She daydreams. She actually thinks, that's enough. Preston's voice cut through the ballroom like thunder. The room went silent. Every eye turned from Veronica to Preston, who was walking toward the stage with the kind of controlled fury that made people step back instinctively. Miss Ashford, he said, his tone deadly calm. I suggest you put down the microphone and leave. Now. Veronica's confidence faltered, but she recovered quickly, that same false smile plastered on her face. I was just having a bit of fun, Preston. Surely you can appreciate... I appreciate nothing about publicly humiliating my staff. He'd reached the stage now, and though his voice remained level, the threat beneath it was unmistakable. You have 30 seconds to remove yourself from this event before I have security do it for you. You can't be serious. Veronica's laugh was high and brittle. For her? For that plain little nobody who... Preston plucked the microphone from her hand with one smooth motion and handed it to the stunned bandleader. Then he turned back to Veronica, and even from where I stood, I could see the ice in his eyes. 20 seconds. Veronica looked around the room, perhaps expecting support, perhaps expecting someone to laugh with her. But the crowd had gone completely silent, and the only sound was the rustle of expensive fabric and the click of a woman's heels as she fled down a side hallway. Preston watched her go, then turned to address the crowd. I apologize for the disruption. Please continue enjoying your evening. The quartet started playing again, tentative at first, then with more confidence. Conversations resumed, though many were clearly about what had just happened. I stood frozen, champagne glass still clutched in my hand, my face burning with humiliation despite Preston's defense. I needed to leave. Now. I set down my glass on a nearby table and turned toward the exit, but a hand caught my wrist before I could take more than 3 steps. Where do you think you're going? Preston's voice was low, meant only for me. Home, I managed, not looking at him. I shouldn't have come. Veronica was right. I don't belong here. His grip on my wrist tightened slightly. Look at me, Paige. It wasn't a request. Slowly I raised my eyes to meet his, and what I saw there made my breath catch. Not pity, not embarrassment. Anger, yes, but not directed at me. And something else. Something that looked almost like possession. You belong wherever I say you belong, he said quietly, his thumb brushing across the inside of my wrist where my pulse hammered against my skin. And right now, I say you belong with me. Preston, dance with me. My eyes widened. What? Dance with me, he repeated, already pulling me toward the center of the ballroom where several couples were swaying to the music. Right now, in front of everyone. I don't think that's a good idea. But he wasn't asking. His arm slipped around my waist, drawing me close as his other hand captured mine. The music swelled, a slow, romantic melody that seemed designed for this exact moment. And then we were moving, and my world narrowed to the warmth of his hand on my waist, the strength of his body so close to mine, the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. "You're shaking," he observed, his voice soft. "I'm not a very good dancer." "You're doing fine." His hand at my waist pressed slightly, guiding me through a turn. Better than fine. I could feel every eye in the ballroom on us, could sense the whispers starting, the speculation. Preston Marchetti, the untouchable bachelor, the dangerous businessman who kept everyone at arm's length, was dancing with his assistant, the plain girl in the green dress. "Ignore them," Preston murmured, as if reading my thoughts. "There's only one person's opinion that matters right now." "Whose?" "Mine." His dark eyes held mine captive. "And I think you look beautiful tonight. I think you're the most genuine person in this room full of snakes and social climbers. I think Veronica Ashford is a bitter, jealous woman who saw in you something she could never be." My throat tightened. What could she possibly see in me? "Someone I actually notice." The words were simple, but the weight behind them was anything but. Someone who makes me want to be in my office every morning just to see her reorganizing my files with that little crease of concentration between her eyebrows. Someone who brings me coffee without being asked and remembers that I take it black with 1 sugar. Someone who isn't afraid to point out when I'm being unreasonable, but does it so diplomatically I barely notice I'm being managed. Each word landed like a physical touch, warming places inside me I'd thought were frozen. "I'm not special," I whispered. "You are to me." The music swelled, and Preston pulled me closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, feel the solid warmth of his chest against mine, sense the controlled strength in every line of his body. We moved together like we'd been doing this for years, like our bodies knew something our minds were still figuring out. "Preston," I began, unsure what I wanted to say. "I'm going to kiss you now," he said quietly, his voice dropping to that dangerous register that made heat pool in my stomach. "In front of all these people. In front of everyone who thinks you don't belong here. And I want you to let me." My heart stopped. Why? Because Veronica was wrong. His hand at my waist moved up to cup my face, his thumb brushing across my cheekbone. She said I would never kiss you. Never touch you. Never see you as anything more than the girl who files my papers. The music slowed, came to a stop. But we didn't stop moving, didn't stop looking at each other. "She was wrong about all of it," Preston murmured, "and I'm going to make sure everyone in this room knows it." Then his mouth was on mine. The kiss was nothing like I'd imagined, and I'd imagined it, God help me, more times than I could count. It was firm and possessive, claiming and giving at the same time. His hand cradled my face like I was something precious, while his arm around my waist pulled me flush against him, and I melted into it, into him, my hands finding their way to his chest where I could feel his heart racing as fast as mine. The ballroom erupted, gasps, whispers, even a few scattered applause. But I barely heard any of it, lost in the sensation of Preston's lips moving against mine, the way his fingers threaded into my hair, the undeniable message being sent to every person watching. She's mine. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His eyes were dark, pupils dilated, and something feral lurked beneath that controlled exterior. "Still think she was right?" he asked, his voice rough. I couldn't speak, could barely think. My lips felt swollen, my body humming with want, and the entire world had just shifted on its axis. "I need an answer, Paige." His thumb traced my lower lip. Do you still think you're invisible to me? No, I whispered. Good. He pressed a softer kiss to my forehead, then stepped back, taking my hand. Because we're leaving now. Together. And tomorrow morning, you're going to stop calling me Sir and start calling me Preston. What? But he was already leading me through the crowd, which parted before us like the Red Sea. I caught glimpses of faces as we passed, shock, envy, confusion, and on a few, knowing smiles. Marcus Chen gave me a subtle thumbs up. Mrs. Benedetti, Luca's wife, actually winked. And standing near the exit, her face a mask of absolute devastation, was Veronica. Preston didn't even glance at her as we walked past. His attention was focused entirely on me, his hand warm and possessive around mine. The valet brought his car around. A sleek black Aston Martin that whispered wealth and danger, and Preston opened the passenger door for me himself. As I slid into the leather seat, still reeling from everything that had happened in the last 20 minutes, he leaned down, his mouth close to my ear. That dress, he murmured, has been driving me insane all night. The way it brings out your eyes, the way it hints at what's underneath without revealing too much. But tomorrow, I'm taking you shopping properly, because as beautiful as you look right now, I want to see you in something that shows the entire world exactly what I see when I look at you. Then he closed the door and walked around to the driver's side, leaving me breathless and burning. As we pulled away from the hotel, leaving the gala and Veronica and my old life behind, I realized Marcus had been right. I wasn't invisible. I never had been. Preston had been seeing me all along. The drive to Preston's penthouse should have been awkward. Two people who'd just publicly declared something neither of us had put into words, sitting in the close confines of an expensive car. But instead, it felt inevitable. Like every moment of the past 6 months had been leading to this. He drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the console between us, so close to mine that I could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. The city lights streaked past the windows, painting everything in watercolor blues and golds. "You're thinking too hard," Preston observed, his voice cutting through my spiraling thoughts. "I'm just processing. Regretting?" No. The word came out faster than I'd intended, more emphatic. "No, I don't understand why you did that. Why you kissed me in front of everyone." He was quiet for a moment, navigating through late-night traffic with the ease of someone who'd driven these streets 1,000 times. Veronica had been pushing boundaries for months, making inappropriate comments, undermining you, using her connections to position herself as indispensable to my business relationships. His jaw tightened. Tonight, she crossed a line. "You could have just fired her." "I'm going to." He glanced at me, and something in his expression made my stomach flip. But that wouldn't have addressed the real issue. Which is, that I've wanted to kiss you since the day you walked into my office for your interview. His admission hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. You were wearing a navy suit that was slightly too big for you, and you had this serious expression like you were preparing for battle. When I asked you why you wanted to work for me, you looked me straight in the eye and said, "Because I'm not afraid of complicated situations, Mr. Marchetti." I remembered that interview, remembered the way his stare had made me feel like I was being examined under a microscope, how I'd forced myself to maintain eye contact, even though every instinct screamed at me to look away. "You had no idea who I really was," Preston continued, pulling into an underground parking garage. "What I really do. But you weren't intimidated, weren't trying to impress me with false confidence. You were just honest. And I realized I wanted you in my life." The car came to a stop in a private space marked with his name. He killed the engine but didn't move to get out. "I'm not a good man, Paige." His voice was low, almost warning. "I've done things that would horrify you. My business empire is built on foundations that aren't entirely legal. The people I deal with, the Benedettis, the other families, they're dangerous. Being close to me puts a target on your back. I know, I whispered. Do you? He turned to face me fully now, and in the dim light of the parking garage, his features looked carved from shadow. Because there's a difference between suspecting something and knowing it, between rumors and reality. Then tell me the reality. For a long moment, he just looked at me, as if deciding how much truth I could handle. Then he sighed, the sound heavy with resignation. My family has been involved in organized crime for 4 generations. My great-grandfather came to America from Sicily with nothing but connections to the old families. He built an empire, restaurants, importing, real estate, all legitimate on the surface. But underneath? He shook his head. Money laundering, protection rackets, strategic violence when necessary. My heart hammered, but I forced myself to stay still, to listen. My father tried to legitimize everything, spent 30 years slowly transitioning the family business into something legal. But you can't wash away that much blood, can't erase that many debts and alliances. When he died and I inherited all of it, the legitimate holdings and the shadow empire. Is that what the Benedetti meetings are about? I asked. Partially. Luca Benedetti and my father were associates. Not friends, but bound by mutual respect and profitable arrangements. I've been working to honor those agreements while simultaneously extracting myself from the more illegal aspects of the business. He ran a hand through his hair, disrupting the perfect styling. It's a tightrope walk. Move too fast, and I insult people who don't take insults lightly. Move too slow, and I remain complicit in things I find unconscionable. What things? His eyes met mine, and I saw something raw there. Guilt, perhaps, or shame. Things I won't burden you with. Not tonight. But you're telling me this because if you're going to be in my life, truly in my life, you need to know what that means. You need to understand that the kiss tonight wasn't just about putting Veronica in her place. It was a declaration. Everyone at that gala now knows you're under my protection, which means you're also a target for anyone who wants to hurt me. The weight of his words settled over me like a heavy coat. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was real, dangerous, complicated. I should be terrified, I said slowly. I should probably run as far from you as possible. Yes, but I'm not going to. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. Why not? I thought about the past 6 months, the way Preston had always been unfailingly respectful, never crossing lines despite the electricity that crackled between us. How he'd noticed when I was overwhelmed and quietly redistributed my workload, the time I'd caught him reviewing my performance evaluation and seen him smile at something I'd written. 1,000 small moments that had woven themselves into something undeniable. Because I trust you, I said simply, and because I'm tired of being invisible. Preston reached across the console, his hand cradling my face with such tenderness it made my throat tighten. You were never invisible, Paige. You were just waiting for the right person to really see you. Then he was kissing me again, and this time there was no audience, no performance. Just the two of us in the close confines of his car, the kiss deepening into something hungry and desperate. His hand slid into my hair, angling my head for better access, and I gasped against his mouth, my hands fisting in his jacket. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. Come upstairs with me. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation, a question, a turning point. Okay, I whispered. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a gleaming high-rise in Tribeca. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city, and the interior was a study in masculine elegance. Dark woods, leather furniture, modern art on the walls. But what caught my attention was the wall of bookshelves, packed with volumes that looked actually read rather than decorative. "You read?" I said, surprised. "Why does that shock you?" Preston moved to the bar in the corner, pulling out 2 glasses. "I don't know. I guess I assumed." I trailed off, not wanting to voice the stereotype. "That criminals are illiterate?" His lips curved. "My mother was a literature professor before she married my father. She insisted all her children read everything from Dante to Dostoevsky. Water or something stronger?" "Water is fine." I moved toward the bookshelves, running my fingers along the spines. "She sounds formidable." She was. Past tense. The pain in those 2 words made me turn to look at him. "She died when I was 23. Cancer. I'm sorry." He handed me a glass of water, his fingers brushing mine. "She would have liked you. Approved of you anyway, which was rare. My mother had exacting standards for anyone in her sons' lives." "Sons? You have brothers?" "One. Nico. He manages our West Coast operations." Preston gestured toward a photo on one of the shelves. 2 dark-haired men, clearly related, standing on what looked like a yacht. "He's younger, more hot-headed, has opinions about how I should run things." "Does he know about me?" "Not yet, but he will." Preston set down his glass and moved closer, his presence filling my awareness. "Everyone will, after tonight." The reality of what we'd done, what I'd agreed to, hit me again. Veronica is going to make my life hell. Veronica is going to be escorted from the building by security first thing Monday morning, and she'll sign a non-disclosure agreement that will bankrupt her if she breathes a word about anything she saw or heard while working for me. His voice was cold, businesslike. She'll also receive a severance package generous enough that she can't claim unfair termination. The problem of Veronica Ashford is solved. The casual way he discussed ending someone's career should have disturbed me. Instead, I felt a guilty surge of relief. What about the others? The people who work for you? They're going to talk. Let them. He was close enough now that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "I don't care what anyone thinks, Paige. I stopped caring about other people's opinions around the time I inherited an empire built on blood money and had to decide what kind of man I wanted to be." "What kind of man did you decide on?" "One who protects what's his." His hand came up to cup my face again, thumb stroking across my cheekbone. "One who doesn't apologize for wanting something and taking it. One who would burn down the entire world before letting anyone hurt the woman he stopped abruptly, his jaw tightening as if he'd almost said something he wasn't ready for. "The woman you what?" I prompted, my heart racing. "It's too soon," he said, almost to himself. "You just learned the truth about me tonight. You're probably still processing." "Preston." I placed my hand over his, holding it against my face. "Finish the sentence." His eyes searched mine, looking for doubt or fear. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him, because he leaned down, his lips brushing against mine as he whispered, "The woman I'm falling in love with." The confession should have terrified me. We'd only really acknowledged this thing between us a few hours ago. But as I looked up at this powerful, dangerous, complicated man, I realized I'd been falling too. Slowly, subtly, over months of small interactions and lingering glances. "I think I've been in love with you since you defended me to Mr. Benedetti," I admitted. "When you told him I was instrumental to the Thompson acquisition, even though we both knew Veronica had tried to take credit for my work." "That was 3 months ago." "I know." A slow smile spread across his face, transforming him from dangerous businessman to something younger, more vulnerable. "We're both idiots then. Because I've wanted you far longer than I should have. But I convinced myself it was wrong, that you were too good for this world, too pure for someone like me." I'm not that good, I protested. You are. He kissed me softly, reverently. You're everything I didn't know I needed, Paige Hayes. And now that I have you, I'm not letting you go. The possessiveness in his words should have set off alarm bells, but instead, they made me feel safe, wanted, cherished in a way I'd never experienced. What happens now? I asked as he led me to the couch, pulling me down beside him. Now we figure out how to navigate this together. His arm came around my shoulders, tucking me against his side. I'm not going to lie. It won't be easy. There will be people who don't approve, who think you're a gold digger or that I'm taking advantage of you. My world is dangerous, and being with me means accepting security measures you're not used to. Security measures? A driver, bodyguards when you leave the building, a security system in your apartment that's connected to my team. He must have felt me tense because he added quickly, not surveillance, protection. There are people who might try to use you to get to me. The reality of what I was stepping into crystallized. This wasn't just a relationship, it was a life change. Everything would be different now. I'll need time to process all of this, I said honestly. Of course. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. But you should know, I'm not a patient man when it comes to things I want. And I want you, Paige. In my life. In my bed. By my side. I want to wake up to you and fall asleep holding you. I want to show you off to the world and watch everyone realize what I've known for months. That you're extraordinary. His words wrapped around me like warmth, melting defenses I'd spent years building. I'm not extraordinary. I'm just... Don't. He tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his eyes. Don't diminish yourself. Not with me. Veronica spent months trying to convince you that you were less than plain, forgettable, unworthy. But she was wrong, and I'm going to spend however long it takes proving it to you. Tears pricked at my eyes, and I blinked them back. Why me? Really? You could have anyone. Models, socialites, women who understand your world. I don't want women who understand my world. I want the woman who looked at me like I was a problem to be solved rather than a prize to be won. I want someone who stays late organizing files because she cares about doing the job well, not to impress me. I want you, Paige, exactly as you are. The sincerity in his voice undid me. I leaned up and kissed him, pouring everything I couldn't say into it. Gratitude, desire, the tentative beginning of love. He responded immediately, his arms tightening around me, the kiss deepening into something claiming. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. Stay tonight. Not for anything more than sleep. I'm not going to rush you. But stay. Let me hold you. It was the vulnerability beneath the request that decided me. Okay. He showed me to his bedroom, a massive space dominated by a king-sized bed and more windows overlooking the glittering city. He lent me one of his shirts to sleep in, and when I emerged from the bathroom wearing it, the look on his face was almost reverent. You're stunning, he said simply. We lay together in the darkness, my head on his chest, his arms wrapped securely around me. Through the windows, I could see the city that never slept, a million lights representing a million lives, all of them existing in a different world from the one I'd just entered. Preston, I whispered. Thank you for tonight, for defending me, for seeing me. His arms tightened. Always, Paige, I'll always see you. As I drifted toward sleep, safe in the arms of a dangerous man who'd somehow become my sanctuary, I thought about Veronica's cruel words. Look at you. He would never kiss you. She'd been so wrong. And tomorrow, when the sun rose on this new reality, I'd begin learning just how wrong. Sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows woke me, and for a disoriented moment, I didn't recognize where I was. Then I felt the warmth of Preston's body beside me. His arm draped possessively across my waist, and the memories of the previous night came flooding back. The gala, Veronica's public humiliation, Preston's kiss in front of everyone. I'm falling in love with you. I turned carefully, not wanting to wake him, and studied his face in the morning light. Asleep, he looked younger, less guarded. His dark lashes rested against his cheeks, and his lips, the ones that had claimed mine so thoroughly, were slightly parted. There was a vulnerability in his sleep that he'd never show the world. I can feel you staring. His voice was rough with sleep, but his eyes remained closed. Heat flooded my cheeks. I wasn't. You were. Now his eyes opened, dark and warm with amusement. And I like it. Good morning, Paige. The intimacy of waking up beside him, of hearing his morning voice, made my stomach flutter. Good morning. He pulled me closer, nuzzling into my neck. Did you sleep well? Better than I have in months, actually. Good. He pressed a kiss to my shoulder, because you're never sleeping anywhere else from now on. The casual assumption should have bothered me, but instead it sent a thrill through me. That's very presumptuous, Mr. Marchetti. Preston, he corrected, his hand sliding up my side in a way that made me shiver. And yes, it is. But I meant what I said last night. I want you here. With me. I have an apartment. A lease. Which we'll break. Or keep and use for storage. I don't care. He propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at me. I'm not letting you go back to that neighborhood, Paige. It's not safe, especially not now that you're publicly connected to me. The reminder of reality intruded on our private bubble. About that, what happens on Monday, at the office? Preston's expression grew serious. Monday. Veronica will be gone by the time you arrive. HR will make an announcement about her departure. Personal reasons, they'll say. You'll continue as my assistant, but we'll need to discuss boundaries. Boundaries? Professional ones. He traced a finger along my jawline. I won't be able to keep my hands off you at home, but at the office, we'll need to maintain some semblance of propriety, at least initially. So we're pretending this isn't happening? No, everyone knows now. But there's a difference between people knowing and rubbing it in their faces every day. We need to give the gossip time to die down, establish a new normal. I nodded, understanding the logic even if I wasn't entirely comfortable with it. And outside the office? Outside the office, you're mine. Publicly, obviously, possessively mine. His voice dropped to that dangerous register. Starting with dinner at Benedetti's restaurant tonight. My eyes widened. You're taking me to meet Luca Benedetti? He already knows about you. The kiss at the gala wasn't exactly subtle. Preston smiled slightly. But yes, I'm taking you. Not as my assistant, but as the woman I'm seeing. There's a difference, and Luca will understand it. The thought of sitting across from one of the most powerful crime bosses in New York while trying to act like I belonged there made my stomach churn. I don't know if I'm ready for that. You are. He kissed me softly. And I'll be right beside you. Luca's traditional, but he's not unreasonable. He'll respect you because I've claimed you. And in our world, that matters. Our world. The phrase sent a chill through me. I wasn't Italian, wasn't connected to any of the families. I was an outsider being pulled into a society with rules I didn't understand. Preston must have sensed my anxiety because he pulled me against his chest, his hand stroking my hair soothingly. I know this is overwhelming, but I promise I'll never put you in danger. Everything I do is to keep you safe. Even if keeping me safe means locking me in a gilded cage? He stiffened slightly. Is that what you think this is? I don't know what to think. I pulled back to look at him. Yesterday, I was just your assistant. Today, I'm waking up in your bed, you're talking about breaking my lease, and tonight I'm meeting mob bosses. It's a lot, Preston. His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he might get angry. But then he sighed, his hand cupping my face gently. You're right. I'm moving too fast. I'm used to identifying what I want and taking it, but you're not a business acquisition. You're a person, and you deserve time to adjust. The acknowledgement meant more than he probably realized. Thank you. But I'm not apologizing for wanting you here, with me, for wanting to protect you. His thumb stroked across my cheekbone. Maybe we can compromise. Keep your apartment for now, but spend most nights here. Let me provide security without it feeling like imprisonment. Go to dinner with me tonight, but if at any point you're uncomfortable, we leave. No questions asked. It was more consideration than I'd expected from a man known for being unyielding in his business dealings. Okay, I can work with that. Good. He kissed me again, longer this time, his hand sliding into my hair. When we finally broke apart, he smiled against my lips. Now, breakfast. I make excellent omelets. You cook? Don't sound so surprised. My mother insisted all her children know their way around a kitchen, said it made us appreciate the people who cooked for us. Watching Preston Marchetti, feared businessman and member of an organized crime dynasty, cook breakfast in his state-of-the-art kitchen while wearing nothing but pajama pants was surreal. He moved with the same confidence he brought to everything else, cracking eggs one-handed and dicing vegetables with professional precision. You're staring again, he noted, not looking up from the pan. Can you blame me? This is not what I expected when I woke up this morning. What did you expect? I don't know. Maybe for last night to have been a dream. He glanced at me, his expression serious. Regrets already? No. I moved to sit at the kitchen island watching him work. Just adjusting. I can understand that. He slid a perfectly folded omelet onto a plate and set it in front of me, along with fresh fruit and toast. Eat. We have a lot to discuss before tonight. The food was delicious, and we ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Preston spoke again. There are some rules you need to know, not mine, the family's, traditions and expectations that govern how our world operates. I set down my fork, giving him my full attention. First, loyalty is paramount. If you hear something in a conversation, at a dinner, in a meeting, you never repeat it. Not to friends, not to family if you have any you're close to, not to anyone outside our immediate circle. Like attorney-client privilege. Exactly. Second, respect the hierarchy. In any gathering, there's an order. Who sits where, who speaks when, who leaves first. It's subtle, but important. Watch me. Follow my lead. I nodded, taking mental notes. Third, and this is crucial. His eyes bored into mine. If anyone ever approaches you when I'm not there, anyone claiming to have a message for me, or offering to help you with something, you walk away and call me immediately. Attempts to access me through you will be made. Some will be genuine. Most will be tests or traps. The reality of what I was stepping into crystallized further. This isn't just about dining at fancy restaurants and wearing expensive clothes, is it? No. He reached across the island to take my hand. It's about navigating a world where appearance and reality are often very different. Where a friendly conversation might be an attempt to gather intelligence. Where accepting the wrong favor could put you in debt to dangerous people. Should I be taking notes? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. You'll learn. I'll teach you. And you have something most people in this world lack. Genuine innocence. That's actually an asset. people will underestimate you, won't see you as a threat. Use that. The idea of using anything, of being strategic in my interactions, felt foreign. But I was beginning to understand that survival in Preston's world required more than just keeping my head down and doing good work. "What about Veronica?" I asked. "Is she going to be a problem?" Preston's expression hardened. "She's been dealt with. The severance package includes a relocation bonus, enough money to start over somewhere far from New York. If she's smart, she'll take it and disappear. If she's not." He trailed off, and the implication hung heavy in the air. "You'd hurt her?" I'd ensure she understood the consequences of making herself a problem. He squeezed my hand. "But it won't come to that. Veronica is vindictive, but she's not stupid. She knows better than to come after someone under my protection." Under my protection. The phrase kept recurring, and I was beginning to understand what it truly meant in this context. Not just physical safety, but a declaration of possession that made me untouchable to Preston's enemies and allies alike. "Tell me about Luca Benedetti," I said, wanting to be as prepared as possible for tonight. "What should I expect?" Preston considered for a moment. "Luca is old school. 70s, widowed, 3 sons in the business. He values tradition, family, loyalty. He'll be polite to you because insulting me by insulting you would violate the respect between our families. But he'll also be evaluating you, trying to determine if you're a liability. How do I prove I'm not? By being yourself. By showing him that you're not trying to be something you're not." Preston's thumb stroked across my knuckles. "Luca respects authenticity. He's dealt with social climbers and gold diggers his entire life. What he hasn't dealt with much is someone like you, genuinely good, genuinely unimpressed by the trappings of our world." "I'm impressed by some of it," I admitted. "Your apartment is stunning." "The apartment is just money and real estate. I'm talking about being unimpressed by the power, the danger, the mystique that most people find intoxicating." He stood, moving around the island to stand behind my stool, his hands settling on my shoulders. "You look at me and see a man, not a myth. That's rare. That's valuable." I leaned back against him, drawing comfort from his solid presence. "I'm scared, Preston. Of tonight, of this world, of not being enough." "You're more than enough." He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. "And I'll be right there with you, every step." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of quiet domesticity that felt surreal. Preston made calls from his home office while I showered and tried to calm my nerves about the evening ahead. He'd arranged for clothes to be delivered, not just for tonight, but an entire wardrobe that now hung in his massive closet. "This is too much," I protested, looking at the designer labels and price tags that probably totaled more than I made in 6 months. "It's not enough." He came up behind me, his arms encircling my waist. "Let me take care of you, Paige. It's one of the few simple pleasures I have, being able to give you things you'd never buy for yourself. I can take care of myself." "I know you can. You've been doing it alone for God knows how long, but you don't have to anymore." His lips found that sensitive spot below my ear. "Let me spoil you. Let me show you what it means to be cherished." The word, cherished, made something crack open in my chest. How long had it been since anyone had made me feel valued, wanted, important? "Okay," I whispered. "But don't expect me to stop being practical just because you're throwing money at me." His laugh was low and warm. "I wouldn't dream of it. Your practicality is one of the things I love about you." Love. He'd said it again, more casually this time, like it was a fact he'd long accepted. And maybe he had. Maybe while I'd been fighting against my feelings for him, afraid of being hurt or rejected, he'd already made his choice. At 6 p.m., Preston emerged from his bedroom in a midnight blue suit that made him look like sin personified. His hair was styled back, his jaw freshly shaved, and the watch on his wrist probably cost more than a car. "You look." I trailed off, unable to find words adequate enough. "Presentable." His eyes swept over me, and the heat in them made my breath catch. I wore a black dress he'd selected, elegant, sophisticated, with a neckline that showed just enough skin to be interesting. "You, on the other hand, look devastating. Luca won't know what hit him." "I'm terrified." "Good." He pulled me close, his hands settling on my waist. "Fear keeps you sharp, aware. Just remember, you're not going as a supplicant or a curiosity. You're going as my partner. That means you sit beside me, you speak when you want to speak, and you leave when you're ready to leave. You're not there to perform or impress. You're there because you're important to me." The pep talk helped, even if my hand still trembled slightly as we made our way down to the parking garage. But as Preston helped me into his car, his hand warm and steady in mine, I found my resolve strengthening. I'd spent years being invisible, overlooked, dismissed as plain and unremarkable. But Preston saw something different when he looked at me, and maybe it was time I started seeing it too. Benedetti's restaurant was in Little Italy, housed in a building that had been in the family for 3 generations. Unlike the corporate elegance of Preston's usual haunts, this place felt lived in, authentic. Red checkered tablecloths, exposed brick, the scent of garlic and tomatoes filling the air. "Preston." Luca Benedetti rose from a corner table as we entered, his arms spread wide in welcome. And the mysterious Miss Hayes. "Come, come, sit." The corner table at Benedetti's was set for 4, though only Luca sat there when we arrived. He was exactly as I remembered from the office meetings. Silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, with eyes that seemed to see everything. But here, in his family's restaurant, he seemed more relaxed, more human. "Luca." Preston shook his hand warmly before guiding me forward. "This is Paige Hayes." "Ah, the young lady who caused quite the stir at the gala." Luca's eyes twinkled with amusement as he took my hand, bringing it to his lips in an old-fashioned gesture. Preston chose well. "Please sit." Preston pulled out my chair, settling me beside him rather than across the table. His hand found mine beneath the table, a steady anchor, as Luca poured wine from an unlabeled bottle. "This is from my private reserve," he explained. "Made by my cousin in Tuscany. You won't find it in any store." I took a sip, the wine rich and complex on my tongue. "It's wonderful." "She has good taste, Preston. In wine and in men, apparently." Luca's smile was genuine. "I must apologize for Veronica's behavior at the gala. She was there at my wife Sophia's insistence. Sophia thought she'd be useful for business relations. We didn't realize how inappropriate she'd become." "It's been handled," Preston said simply. "Yes, I heard. Severance package and a one-way ticket to California, no?" Luca nodded approvingly. Sometimes problems are best solved with distance rather than more drastic measures. The casual reference to more drastic measures sent a chill through me, but I kept my expression neutral. "Now," Luca leaned back in his chair. "Tell me, Miss Hayes, what does your family think of your involvement with our Preston here?" The question landed like a test. "My family is small. Just me, really. My parents died when I was in college." Luca's expression softened genuinely. "Ah, that's hard. Family is everything. But perhaps," he glanced at Preston meaningfully, "you're building a new family now, yes?" Before I could respond, a young man approached the table, early 20s, dark-haired, with Luca's eyes but a harder edge to his features. "Papa." He nodded to his father, then to Preston. "Marchetti." His gaze slid to me, assessing. "And this must be the famous assistant." "Marco," Luca's voice carried a note of warning, Mind your manners. This is Miss Paige Hayes, Preston's companion. The deliberate emphasis on companion rather than assistant wasn't lost on any of us. Marco's expression shifted, recognition of what that meant dawning in his eyes. My apologies, Miss Hayes. He extended his hand. Marco Benedetti. I handle the family's shipping operations. Nice to meet you, I said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, professional, but his eyes remained cautious. Sit, Luca commanded. We're here for family dinner, not business. As if on cue, waiters began bringing food, antipasti, pasta, braised meats, vegetables roasted in olive oil. Everything was served family style, meant to be shared. Luca insisted on serving me himself, heaping my plate with more food than I could possibly eat. You're too thin, he declared. Preston, you're not feeding her enough. I'm feeding her fine, Preston replied, amusement in his voice. She's just naturally delicate. Delicate, Luca laughed. But with spine, I think. You stood up to Veronica, yes, even before Preston intervened? I felt all eyes on me. I tried to ignore her, mostly. Engaging just made it worse. Smart. Marco nodded approval. Veronica was always a problem. Too ambitious, too willing to trade on connections she didn't really have. The conversation flowed around me, touching on business matters in vague terms that probably meant more than they appeared. Preston's hand never left mine under the table, a constant reminder that I wasn't alone in this. Tell me, Luca said, his attention returning to me. What do you think of our Preston's business practices? You manage his schedule, yes? You see how he operates? Another test. I chose my words carefully. I think Preston is trying to build something legitimate, something his children could be proud of. The table went quiet. Preston's hand tightened on mine. Luca studied me for a long moment, then smiled, a real smile reaching his eyes. You see clearly, Miss Hayes. Not many do. They see the surface, the money, the power, the connections. But you see the man beneath, what he's trying to become. That's a gift. It's not that special, I deflected. No? Luca leaned forward. Let me tell you something about our world, Miss Hayes. Most people in it see only what benefits them. They look at Preston and see opportunity. Money to be made, connections to be exploited, power to be borrowed. Very few look at him and see a man trying to do better than his father, better than his grandfather. Sophia, she saw it in me once, made me want to be worthy of that faith. The mention of his late wife brought a shadow across Luca's face. Preston had told me she'd died 2 years ago from cancer, that Luca had never really recovered. She sounds like she was an incredible woman, I said softly. She was. Luca's voice was rough with emotion. 35 years we had. Not enough. Never enough. He raised his glass. To the women who make us better men. May we be worthy of them. We all raised our glasses, and I caught Preston looking at me with such intensity it stole my breath. The dinner continued with lighter conversation. Stories of Preston's father, of Luca's early days in the business, of the changing landscape of their world. Marco gradually warmed to me, his initial wariness giving way to something like approval when I asked intelligent questions about shipping logistics. You're not what I expected, he admitted over dessert, a tiramisu that melted on the tongue. When Papa said Preston was bringing his assistant, I thought. He trailed off, clearly thinking better of finishing that sentence. You thought I'd be another Veronica, I finished for him. Someone using Preston for his connections. Something like that. He had the grace to look embarrassed. But you're different. You actually listen when people talk. You ask real questions, not the kind designed to flatter or manipulate. Because I genuinely want to understand, I replied. This world is new to me. I'm not going to pretend I know how it works. That honesty will serve you well, Luca interjected. Or get you in trouble. Depends on who you're honest with. He looked at Preston. You'll protect her? Teach her what she needs to know? With my life, Preston said simply. Something passed between the two men, an understanding that went deeper than words. Luca nodded once, satisfied. Then she's family now. Marco, spread the word. Miss Hayes is under Benedetti protection, same as Marchetti. My eyes widened. I don't understand. It means, Preston explained quietly, that hurting you is the same as hurting me or Luca. It expands your protection beyond just my influence to include Benedetti resources. That's a lot, I managed. That's how we survive, Luca said matter-of-factly. By protecting our own. And you, Miss Hayes, are one of ours now, whether you like it or not. As we left the restaurant hours later, my head spinning with wine and information, Preston pulled me close. That went better than I expected, he murmured. Luca giving me family protection. That's a big deal, isn't it? It's everything. Preston opened the car door for me. It means you're truly safe. Not just from my enemies, but from anyone who might think of you as leverage. Should I be flattered or terrified? Both. He slid into the driver's seat beside me, but mostly grateful. Luca doesn't extend that protection lightly. He genuinely likes you, Paige, sees you as good for me. Am I? Good for you? Preston's hand found my face, cradling it gently. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. You make me want to be the man you see when you look at me. I just see you, I whispered. Preston. Not the business, not the danger. Just you. He kissed me then, deep and claiming, and I melted into it, into him. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. Come home with me. Stay. I didn't bring clothes for work tomorrow. We'll stop by your apartment, get what you need, or buy new. I don't care. I just want you with me. The possessiveness should have bothered me. Instead, it made me feel valued, wanted in a way I'd never experienced. Okay. We stopped by my tiny studio. Preston's eyes widening slightly at just how small and bare it was, and I grabbed enough clothes for a few days. As I looked around at my modest possessions, I felt the last threads of my old life beginning to fray. You don't have to give this up completely, Preston said, reading my expression. Keep it if it makes you feel secure. But we both knew the truth. I was already gone from this life, pulled into Preston's orbit with a force I couldn't resist. Back at his penthouse, we fell into bed together, and this time when he pulled me against his chest, it felt less like a new experience, and more like coming home. Tell me something I don't know about you, Preston murmured into the darkness. Like what? Anything. Something real, I thought for a moment. When my parents died, I spent a year barely functioning. Failed most of my classes, almost dropped out. My advisor, Professor Harrigan, she's the one who pulled me through. Told me I was too smart to let grief destroy me. Preston's arms tightened around me. I'm sorry you went through that alone. I'm not alone anymore. No, he agreed. You're not. We drifted toward sleep, wrapped in each other. And for the first time since my parents died, I felt like I belonged somewhere. To someone. But in the morning, reality would intrude again. The office, the gossip, the careful navigation of our new public relationship. I pushed those worries aside, choosing instead to savor this moment of peace. Tomorrow, we'd face whatever came. Together. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. I woke tangled in Preston's arms, the city already alive beyond the windows, and felt the first flutter of anxiety about walking into the office as something other than just his assistant. Stop thinking so loud. Preston mumbled against my shoulder. "I can hear your brain spinning from here. I'm just nervous about today." He propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at me with sleep-mused hair and soft eyes. HR sent the announcement about Veronica's departure yesterday afternoon. By now, everyone knows she's gone. They also know why. Because she publicly humiliated your girlfriend? Because she violated company policy regarding professional conduct and harassment. His hand traced lazy patterns on my arm. The kiss at the gala is just confirmation of what's probably been suspected for months. We weren't as subtle as we thought, Paige. I blinked. What do you mean? I mean that the way I looked at you, the way I made sure you were never assigned to degrading tasks, how I always asked for you specifically for important meetings. People noticed. The only one who didn't seem to notice was you. The revelation shifted my understanding of the past 6 months. All those times I'd convinced myself I was imagining the tension between us. Others had already seen it. So, walking in together won't be as shocking as I thought? Probably not, though showing up in my car definitely sends a message. He kissed my forehead. But we'll do this however you're comfortable. I can have the driver bring you separately if you prefer. I considered it, but that felt like hiding, like being ashamed. No, together. We might as well own it. Pride flickered in his eyes. That's my girl. My girl. The casual possessiveness should have set off alarm bells. Instead, it made warmth bloom in my chest. The office greeted us with barely concealed stares and whispered conversations that stopped abruptly when we passed. Preston kept his hand at the small of my back as we rode the elevator up, a silent declaration of solidarity. When the doors opened on the executive floor, I half expected Veronica to be there, ready for one final confrontation. But her desk sat empty, already cleared of personal items, her name placard gone from the door. That was fast, I murmured. I wanted all traces of her gone before you arrived, Preston explained. You shouldn't have to see reminders of someone who tried to diminish you. His thoughtfulness, especially about something so small, made my throat tight. Thank you. Always. He guided me toward his office, but paused at my desk. I've asked HR to post the position Veronica held. We need someone to handle external relations. You're not worried about finding another Veronica? Not remotely. Because this time I'll listen to your assessment of candidates. Your judgment of character is better than mine. He kissed my temple quickly, professionally. I have a meeting at 9. Order breakfast for both of us? Of course. The morning passed in a strange new normal. I fielded calls and emails, managed Preston's calendar. But now I did it with the knowledge that I'd wake up beside him tomorrow morning. That tonight we'd share dinner in his penthouse. That our relationship had fundamentally transformed, even if my daily tasks hadn't. At lunch, Marcus Chen appeared at my desk with a knowing smile. So, you and the boss. I felt my cheeks heat. Yeah, about damn time. We had a pool going about when he'd finally make a move. I won, by the way. Had my money on during a company event after Veronica pushed too far. Despite my embarrassment, I laughed. You bet on my love life? Your love life was entertainment for the entire accounting department. The tension between you two was painful to watch. He perched on the edge of my desk. But seriously, Paige, I'm happy for you. Preston's a good man, despite the rumors and the family history. He deserves someone genuine. Thank you, Marcus. That means a lot. Just be careful, okay? This world he's part of, it's dangerous. Make sure you know what you're getting into. I thought about dinner with Luca Benedetti, about the casual references to violence, about the protection that now extended over me like an invisible shield. I'm learning. The afternoon brought its first real test of our new dynamic. A client, some hedge fund manager Preston had been courting for months, made a comment during a video call that made my skin crawl. Marchetti, I see you've upgraded your office decoration. Much better view than before. Preston's expression went cold. "Excuse me?" "Your assistant. Much prettier than that dark-haired one you used to have." The man's leer was visible even through the screen. "Miss Hayes is my executive assistant and my partner. Speak about her disrespectfully again, and our business relationship is terminated. Understood?" The hedge fund manager's face paled. "I didn't mean—" "Understood?" Preston repeated, steel in his voice. Yes, of course. My apologies, Miss Hayes." I nodded, throat tight with emotion. Preston could have laughed it off, could have let the comment slide to preserve the business relationship. Instead, he'd put the man in his place immediately. After the call ended, Preston pulled me into his office and shut the door. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. But you didn't have to defend me like that. That deal was worth millions." "I don't give a damn about the deal. No one talks about you that way. No one." His hands framed my face. "You're not just my assistant anymore, Paige. You're under my protection. That means something." "I'm starting to understand that." He kissed me, slow and deep, and I melted into it, into him. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "Tonight, I want to take you somewhere." "Where?" "You'll see. Trust me?" "Yes." The answer came without hesitation, and I realized it was true. Somewhere along the way, I'd started trusting this dangerous, complicated man with everything I had. That evening, Preston drove us to a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Older buildings, tree-lined streets, surprisingly quiet given how close we were to downtown. He parked in front of a beautiful brownstone with ivy climbing its walls. "What is this place?" I asked. "Mine. Or it will be once the paperwork clears." He came around to open my door. "I bought it last week." "You bought a house?" "I bought us a house." He led me up the front steps, producing a key. "The penthouse is nice, but it's mine from before you. I wanted something that was ours from the start." My heart stuttered. "Preston, that's— Come see inside before you decide if it's too much." He opened the door, revealing a spacious foyer with original hardwood floors and a staircase that curved gracefully to the second floor. The house was empty, but beautiful. High ceilings, crown molding, large windows that let in golden afternoon light. Preston led me through room after room, pointing out features, suggesting how we might furnish each space. "This could be a library," he said, gesturing to a room lined with built-in bookshelves. "I know you love to read, and upstairs there's a room with perfect light for an office. Your office, not mine." I followed him through the house in a daze. He'd bought us a home. A real home, not just an apartment, but a place with history and character and room to grow. "Why?" I finally asked as we stood in the master bedroom, looking out at a small garden below. "Because I'm serious about you, Paige. About us. I want a life with you, not just nights together between business obligations. I want morning coffee in our kitchen and lazy Sundays in our garden. I want to build something real with you." Tears pricked my eyes. This is moving so fast. Too fast? I looked around the empty bedroom, imagining it filled with furniture, with our belongings, with the life we'd build together. No, not too fast, just right. He pulled me against his chest, and I felt him exhale with relief. I was terrified you'd think I was crazy, that buying a house after less than a week together was insane. It probably is insane, I admitted, but I don't care. We spent an hour wandering through the house, planning and dreaming. Preston pointed out where he wanted to put a piano. "I'll learn for you." And I suggested converting the basement into a wine cellar, since apparently we're going to be entertaining mob bosses regularly. As the sun set, painting the rooms in shades of gold and amber, Preston pulled me close in what would be our living room. "I love you," he said simply. I should have said it more clearly before. Not falling in love or any hedging. Just, I love you, Paige Hayes. Completely. Probably have for months. The words landed in my chest, warm and settling. I love you too, even though this is crazy and probably ill-advised and definitely complicated. The best things usually are. He kissed me, soft and sweet. Move in with me. Here, once it's ready. Or the penthouse until then. Stop keeping one foot in your old life and jump all the way into this one. It was terrifying. It was too fast. It was everything I'd never let myself want. Okay. Okay? Yes, I'll move in with you. We'll build a life in this beautiful house, and I'll try not to panic about how quickly everything is changing. His laugh was pure joy. I'll hold you to that. We made love that night in the empty house, on a blanket Preston had grabbed from his car, christening the space that would become our home. And afterward, lying in his arms with city sounds drifting through open windows, I felt something I hadn't experienced since before my parents died. Complete, unshakable certainty that I was exactly where I belonged. No more looking back, Preston murmured against my hair. Only forward. Together. Together, I agreed. And somewhere in the city, Veronica Ashford boarded a plane to California, leaving behind the life she'd tried to build. Leaving behind the man she'd wanted but could never have, because she'd never understood what he actually valued. Not power, or beauty, or connections. Just genuine human connection. Love. Trust. All the things she'd mocked me for being, plain, honest, unglamorous, had turned out to be exactly what Preston wanted. What he'd been searching for without knowing it. Look at you, she'd said cruelly. He would never kiss you. But she'd been wrong. So devastatingly, completely wrong. Preston had kissed me, claimed me, loved me. And in doing so, he'd shown me that I'd never been invisible at all. I'd just been waiting for someone who knew how to really see.